This month on Focus Black Oklahoma, join us as we review the public response to the alleged sexual abuse of detainees at Tulsa County Family Center for Juvenile Justice.
Confront how underfunding has impacted Langston University, which is Oklahoma's only historically Black college or university.
Report from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee.
Discover the challenges, innovative strategies, and rewards of fostering children in Oklahoma.
Speak with Kamren Larsen, the first Black BMX athlete to represent the United States at the Olympic level.
And hear jazz legend Freda Payne discuss her legacy and upcoming book signing at Tulsa's The Church Studio. All this and more on Focus Black Oklahoma.
Focus Black Oklahoma is sponsored by the Black Church Traditions and African American Faith Life program at Phillips Seminary, offering a master's degree in social justice online and in person. Learn more at wherefaithleads.com.
This is Focus Black Oklahoma. I'm Kuma Roberts.
And I'm Jacob Littlebear.
The Tulsa County Family Center for Juvenile Justice, or FCJJ, was raided on Friday morning, July 12th. Investigators with several law enforcement agencies spent an entire day and night removing boxes and electronic equipment from the center, located at 500 West Archer Street in Tulsa.
Dozens of law enforcement officers from several agencies descended on the Tulsa County Juvenile Center Friday morning at 8:30. Several hours later, well into the evening, they were still there, bringing boxes of evidence and even some electronics out of the building. The Tulsa County Sheriff's Office, Homeland Security, and Tulsa Police were all involved in the search.
Investigators have begun working under a warrant issued by the Tulsa Police Department with the goal of finding evidence related to 2 recent arrests of FCJJ staff and a federal lawsuit filed in May of this year. The lawsuit was filed in the Federal District Court for the Eastern District of Oklahoma on behalf of 20 victims who are residents of the facility and suffered sexual abuses and neglect.
Keep in mind, this is not an old facility, right? Like the FCJJ is fairly new, had issues apparently very quickly, almost from the jump.
Since the center opened in 2019, the State Office of Juvenile Affairs, or OJA, has found numerous violations at the regular inspections of the FCJJ. Violations including children being detained for too long, improper use of physical restraint methods, inadequate access to medicine, and children not being enrolled in school have been reported every year the FCJJ has been open. The OJA has warned the FCJJ that unless conditions improve significantly by the end of July, its contract could be terminated.
My approach to leadership is just completely different. I don't think that if you can't sign your name on a line and change something immediately, if you don't have that power to do it with the stroke of a pen, that doesn't mean to me, oh, not my responsibility. No, I don't have anything to do with that. That means, okay, now you know that the community needs something. You represent 230,000 people. That is a ton of folks at your side to go and say, I'm going to keep coming here and asking questions. My community wants to know about this. They want to know what's happening. I represent a third of this county. So whether it is like the district judge, Kevin Gray, who they keep pointing fingers at because he has the hiring and firing authority at the Family Center for Juvenile Justice, well, he represents the whole county. He's a county judge. He got elected by the whole county. Well, one voter emailing him or calling his office and saying, I've got a problem with this, that carries wildly different weight than one county commissioner who's calling and emailing or showing up at the office saying, hey, I represent 230,000 Tulsa County residents, and like, what the hell is going on?
That was Sarah Gray, no relation to District Judge Kevin Gray. She is running for the Tulsa County Board of Commissioners District 2 seat vacated by Karen Keith, who left to join Tulsa's mayoral race. We reached out to the other candidates in the District 2 race, Maria Barnes, Melissa Myers, and Lonnie Sims, for comment. Barnes did not respond in time for this broadcast, while neither Myers nor Sims responded to our request. We also reached out to Karen Keith, who has also not responded to our request. Here is Sarah Gray again.
Now we know, with all of the open records requests that have been fulfilled, shout out to Oklahoma Appleseed for doing all that legwork. Now we know for, I think it's 12 to 18 months or so, they've been getting consistent reports saying, and no, none of those things were about sex trafficking or rape or sexual allegations. But there were still serious allegations, like kids not getting fed enough, kids not getting let out of their rooms enough, kids not getting appropriate schooling, all of these things that are very serious things.
Tulsa Police Captain Richard Muhlenberg said to local reporters that these recent arrests are just one step in a long process and that this investigation could take months or even years to complete.
We've arrested 2 people and the problem solved. We don't know that. So we have to really go and see and look at the entirety of the situation to make sure that the prosecutions that need to happen, and then we protect these kids and future kids.
According to a statement by current Tulsa County Commissioners on Thursday, July 11th, the FCJJ has been placed back on probationary status, and District Judge Kevin Gray was asked to be relieved of his duties supervising the facility. Here is Oklahoma Appleseed Executive Director Colleen McCarty.
So remember that part about the resident. This is a developing situation. I think everyone in this room should pay really close attention to the timing of when everything has happened and the timing of what I'm about to tell you. While we've been sitting here, Judge Gray, who, if you remember from when he spoke, they've asked him to be removed from his position. The county commissioners have. He issued a statement while we've all been sitting in this room, where he is clarifying what's been going on.
Although most elected officials haven't been speaking out on the issues facing the FCJJ, Sarah Gray addresses how this election season will help voters gain some clarity on how those running will respond if elected.
At first, I was really frustrated. I was thinking this election is happening and we've got this huge issue that's coming up and no one's going to talk about it. And it's going to be so difficult to get people to engage with this because of the election. They're going to be completely silent because of their elections. And then the more I thought, I was like, wait a second, this is actually like a blessing in disguise for it to come to light. Now we have like a bigger mirror to hold up, right? We have a bigger ability to build like general knowledge about the issue that we wouldn't have if it wasn't an election season. It'd be harder to get these things rolling. But now it's all happening during election season. And so my perspective has shifted. If not for the election season, we probably could still get some kind of accountability. With it being the election season, we have an opportunity to come in and make like sweeping change, like cultural change that can actually really, really help these kids.
On Thursday, July 11th, a town hall was organized by the Appleseed Center for Law and Justice at the Greenwood Cultural Center in Tulsa. The first 2 rows of seating were reserved for 20 local elected officials who had been invited to the event. Only Representative Monroe Nichols from Oklahoma's 72nd District, who is also a Tulsa mayoral candidate, was present. Here is attorney Chris Brecht of Smolin Law.
These are the stories of even more. We learned this in 2 months. And for the empty chairs here to say we didn't know about it until a couple of weeks ago is bull. It's in black and white. They knew what was going on. I don't want to hear, I didn't know, and it's not my fault, and it's not my responsibility. How many kids have to get hurt for you to care? How many kids have to get raped for you to care? Apparently not 20, because I see several empty seats of people who are responsible and aren't here. How many children have to be hurt for us to care? No more. I'm part of the firm, I work for Smolin Law, and we are the law firm that filed the federal lawsuit that is currently ongoing. I know Colleen and Appleseed wanted me to talk about the status of the lawsuit and the litigation. It is in its very early stages, so literally about a week ago, we released a second amended complaint, which added 10 additional victims and several additional defendants, again, some of whom are names that I'm reading on these chairs.
Again, here's Sarah Gray.
Elections are easy to start looking on the dark side, for sure. But I think that there is so much good to be done in this moment in time where a change of leadership is possible. And it's not just possible, it is impending, it's coming. I think that we can actually do something that's going to make a huge difference. And I'm excited about that. I'm nervous. I want us to do it. I'm not trying to get my heart broken here, but I'm feeling confident at least that we have it within reach. We just got to get up on our tippy toes and get there. And I'm just excited that people care, because for a while I felt like it was just me and Oklahoma Appleseed like screaming into the void. I was so frustrated because I'm like, we got to talk about this. We are going to talk about this right now, because what is the other option? We just stay quiet while kids are being harmed, detained children are being harmed. That's wild to me, to not see this as a layup issue for Republicans, Democrats, everybody to get behind. Like, we should all be able to agree that kids should all be protected, but especially detained children. Like, they have no family. They get 2 phone calls a week.
If your child has been hurt by any type of child abuse or trauma, contact Family and Children's Services at 918-587-9471. Oklahoma state law requires every person, private citizen, or professional who has reason to believe that a child under the age of 18 is a victim of abuse or neglect to immediately report the matter to the Department of Human Services. If you believe a child is being abused or neglected, call the Abuse and Neglect Hotline at 1-800-522-3511.
In Oklahoma City, frustration mounts as the state officials highlight a $400 million funding shortfall for Langston University, the state's only historically Black college and university. Despite a $5 billion state budget surplus, Langston continues to receive a fraction of the support given to other state universities, prompting renewed calls for equitable funding. Anthony Cherry has details.
Since 1837, historically Black colleges and universities, or HBCUs, have served as major social and economic pillars in Black American society. These schools share a rich history of cultivating the social and intellectual spaces for the development of generations of Black doctors, engineers, teachers, lawyers, and other skilled professionals within the Black community. According to historian Manning Marable, the HBCU is a direct product of American racial discrimination and segregation. Since Black students were excluded from predominantly white institutions, or PWIs, HBCUs were the only option. Manning also asserts that, quote, the original function of the Black college was, at least from the view of white society, to train Black learners to accept a separate and unequal position within American life, end quote. Marable also argues that despite gross racism, draconian Jim Crow policies, and rigid segregation, Black schools did a remarkable job in preparing Black youth for productive careers. Black leaders and intellectuals eventually, over time, reclaimed the missions of their white trustees and state governments. They transformed Black institutions of higher learning from tools of white supremacy into bastions of social and economic empowerment. Langston University, a public land-grant university located in Langston, is the state's only HBCU. Established in 1897, Langston has strived to meet Black Oklahomans' demands for equal access to the schoolhouse and the opportunities it provides. With current issues of inequitable funding in 2024, how much has truly changed in Langston's 127 years, particularly in the struggle for equitable funding within the state of Oklahoma?
When we look at Langston and the fact that just this past year, Langston requested $65 million. It's a land grant institution. They requested $65 million. OSU was requested money. They got $80 million. OU, $80 million. Rogers State, $10 million. But then here we have Langston, $2.5 million. And we have to understand that what we're basically functioning in when we look at higher ed or education as a whole, we're still grappling with that separate but equal mentality. Because when you only give Langston $2.5 million and everyone else, you give them $80 million and $10 million, what you're saying is, yes, we're separate, but we're equal.
That was Dr. Janetti P. Marshall, a legacy graduate of Langston University. Her father, who was born in 1903, attended Langston University in the late 1920s. She is also the president of the Tulsa Chapter of Langston University's National Alumni Association and a member of Tulsa Public Schools School Board, representing District 3.
Discrimination is not just about color. Discrimination exists financially, and that's what we're seeing. That's the component that we're seeing. And the talking point is the fact that without adequate funding, we can't do what we need to do.
In 2015, Regina Goodwin was elected to serve as state representative for Tulsa House District 73. In June 2024, Goodwin won the Democratic primary for the Oklahoma Senate 11th District and will go on to secure the seat. She explains what she categorizes as a crisis.
I would say that it's a crisis of the making of the legislature. So, you know, it's not like it was an accident. This has been intentional for years and decades. So we've been speaking to the inequity in funding as relates to Langston University since I've been at the Capitol. I've been there 9 years. So it had heightened awareness because the United States government sent a letter to Governor Stitt basically saying that the Oklahoma State Legislature has shorted or underfunded Langston by approximately $419 million since 1987.
How did $419 million in appropriated funds for the state's only HBCU go missing? Goodwin has been sounding the alarm for almost a decade.
State regents of higher ed, right? They pretty much oversee funding. Funding comes from the legislature. Legislature then passes it on to the state regents of higher ed. They make decisions. They are denying that the inequity exists. They're saying, we don't believe these numbers, right? I would just say that I've been in my 9th year when we asked for the funding. They made these statements on the House floor that Langston gets more money per student than some of the other universities to explain away their ill behavior. And then when they come over to me and they say, Regina, just wait till next year. We'll see what we can do next year. I told them, you've been telling me that for 9 years. So as an individual, I'm about to go on to a decade of asking. When we talk about the decades and decades and decades where folks are old, we've got to stand up.
Dr. Marshall draws on lessons in history for her inspiration to make a difference in how Langston is funded.
When you look at Dr. Nathan Hare, Dr. Julia Hare, some of the trailblazers in education, both of them have now gone to be with the ancestors, but they were trailblazers. They attended Langston University. Dr. Hare graduating from Langston University. Bessie Coleman attended Langston University. And she's one who we celebrate, and there's a stamp that bears her likeness and her name. Langston is no joke. But when we look at our legislature, when we look at our regents for higher education, we have to understand that we're not getting the same understanding, and the narrative is much different that they're writing. Because when we keep hearing the words as African Americans, people of color, we keep hearing those words, tomorrow. When does tomorrow come? How many students do we have to lose? And it almost feels like there's a self-fulfilling prophecy to close down our HBCUs by a lack of funding.
As a local historian, Goodwin tracks the history of underfunding for Langston as a land-grant HBCU.
So this is nothing new. There have been universities like Tennessee State University, Representative Harold Love, his father before him, they saw the underfunding at that historically Black university. They had a lawsuit, though, and they were successful. Now, whether there's the payout of the monies that are owed, that's another thing, but they have studied it. They saw that they were underfunded, like a number of other Black institutions. But I want folks to understand the difference between a land grant institution and then a historically Black college. Langston just happens to be both. But the issue is about the land grant institutions and how they were funded and the Morrill Act of 1862. And then there was another Morrill Act, Morrill Act of 1890. And that's why we know there's been a disparity or unfair treatment as it relates to Langston University compared to Oklahoma State University, which is another land grant institution in Oklahoma.
Goodwin goes on to explain the significance of land grant institutions.
In 1862, there was a Morrill Act. It talked about how institutions, higher ed related to agriculture, would be funded. And they would take parcels of land. They would then provide those to universities so universities could be built. The universities built on this land, right, were to be specified in agriculture and, as they say, agricultural sciences. So in 1890, another 30 years later, they saw that this, what they meant for good, it wasn't working out. So in 1890, they said, while we have these other institutions, these Black students are not being provided an education. We are going to have another Morrill Act, the second one, in 1890. And what that said was, we're not going to necessarily give land, but we're going to give funding so that institutions that specifically cater to Black folks in particular could be built so that our generations could be educated. Also educated, though, as it relates to agricultural sciences. That is how Langston University was funded, right? And that's how they got their start. So that's why they're known as a land grant institution. That distinguishes them from some other historically Black colleges and universities that are not land grant institutions, okay? So having that history, you already are owed something. And what has happened is when the federal government would give $1 to an institution, then the state was to match it with another $1. That's the way it's supposed to go. At the bare minimum, you can do more if you'd like, but you got to do one-to-one match. That's the law, right? What's happened with Langston University is over the decades, they've only been provided about 45 cents to $1 that the federal government would provide.
Ultimately, according to Senator Goodwin, an extreme misappropriation of funds has occurred.
Because that's if they're not going where they're supposed to go, they're being misused, they're being misallocated. It's as simple as that. So what we need to do is we need to be vocal, we need to show up, we need to be informed, and we need to understand you need to talk about land grant institutions.
Dr. Marshall, a galvanizing spokesperson for Langston alumni, encourages the next generation of HBCU students to take their commitment seriously.
Their power is in their voice and their ability to do whatever it takes to stay in an HBCU like Langston. They do have voice. As an African American, I can't accomplish things. I can't achieve things. So therefore, I want, number one, to just put that out there, that we need people to understand that when you go to an HBCU, when you go to and attend, matriculate at Langston University, you are an individual that's going to come out capable, competent, and prepared, ready to meet the world and ready to thrive and accomplish the things that you've set out to accomplish.
How much has changed? How much can be changed? What agency do Black Oklahomans truly possess? Here's Senator Goodwin.
We cannot let folks push us back into a time where we were seen as less than human. I know that some people still see us that way, but I see myself as fully human, and I think I have to act accordingly.
Dr. Marshall summarizes her request to the state regents of higher education.
We're in this education game together, but you're not equipping us in this education game by giving the funding that is needed to provide the things that our students need at our HBCUs.
Manning Marable warns his readers that, quote, the process of educational underdevelopment has returned in fashion to its original premises. The overt suppression of independent Black educational institutions, end quote. Senator Regina Goodwin and Dr. Janetti P. Marshall believe that higher education is a path to a better life. It can also be perceived as the modern battleground for the construction of a better, more economically inclusive society. For Focus Black Oklahoma, I'm Anthony Cherry in Langston.
Would you like to pitch a story to FBO?
Or work with us as a correspondent?
Please email us at contact@focusblackoklahoma.com.
Or call 918-807-3886. In Oklahoma, where over 9,000 children are in foster care, Quinton and Danielle Melton have opened their hearts and home to more than 35 foster kids since 2016. For this Tulsa couple, it's about creating lasting memories and providing stability during uncertain times. Their journey reflects a broader effort to support foster children through innovative initiatives and community engagement. Zaakirah Muhammad has the story.
In the United States, there are over 400,000 children and teens in foster care, and over 100,000 of them waiting to be adopted. In Oklahoma alone, there are over 9,000 children in foster care and over 500 waiting to be adopted. Adoption is more permanent than foster care, which has indefinite placement until the age of 17 or 18 as a result of poverty-stricken environments due to the disproportion of welfare resources. Amani Myers, CEO and founder of Launch Ahead, shares her story of being born during the crack pandemic in the 80s, placed in foster care due to circumstances beyond her control, and later taken in by her great aunt under kinship care. Amani reflects on the confusion of being separated from her siblings.
I was born during the crack epidemic and was born with drugs in my system, and so I was immediately placed into foster care because of that. At the age of 6 months, my great aunt learned about my siblings and I and decided to take us in under kinship care for 10 years. I moved with my mom for about 2.5 years, and then I officially went into foster care at the age of 12, where I was separated from my siblings. I entered the foster care system at the age of 12 to 18. Shortly after my 18th birthday, I abruptly aged out of foster care, where my belongings were packed in black trash bags waiting for me on the porch. So my time during foster care, I would say, was a little bit confusing because I didn't initially know all of the full details as to why I was in foster care. And I knew that my mom struggled with parenting, and I know that she struggled with abuse, but I wasn't entirely sure why I was actually separated from my siblings because my siblings were my protective factors.
Quinton and Danielle Melton, who've opened up their home to over 35 foster children since 2016, are actively involved with the Oklahoma Department of Human Services and Wesleyan Foster Care in Tulsa. Initially hesitant about becoming a foster parent, Quinton's perspective shifted as he reflected on his upbringing and his wife's experience with foster kids.
Well, initially, I didn't want to. I don't know if that's something I'm prepared for or ready for. I've spent time previously working as a youth detention counselor. I was a little leery of kids and things like that. Danielle, she grew up having foster kids in her home. In a way, I kind of grew up that way, too. My dad was a police officer. My mom, she worked in retail. So there was always times where, okay, well, this kid may not have a place to go tonight. Okay, well, they may spend the night at our house.
Danielle is the founder and CEO of Motherboard, an app designed to alleviate stress, enhance well-being, and manage workplace challenges effectively, based in Tulsa. She is motivated for fostering, stemming from her upbringing with foster siblings and the desire to give back to the community through foster care. Danielle observed Quinton's initial hesitation gave way to immense enthusiasm upon welcoming their first 2 foster children, who were ages 6 and 8.
We're still close to a lot of the foster siblings we had back in the day. And I wanted to do that because I was excited, but he was super excited as soon as those 2 boys came. He's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And like just all the experiences, it was so, so wonderful to the point where we even have the first kids that we've had back in 2016. They would call randomly, call my husband just to say hi. We did foster to foster. And through our 34 children, we have adopted 1 who is our only daughter, our only child, which is our Kennedy.
Among transitions and uncertainties, Amani Myers highlights the lack of emotional connections in foster placements.
When you get lost into the system, you don't necessarily know, who's there to support you and who's not. And so throughout my time in care, I would say that I did have foster parents who took time to try to get to know me, but I would say that the element that was missing a lot of the times was the emotional connection.
Quinton and his wife, Danielle, prioritized creating lasting memories for the children in their care, focusing on experiences rather than material possessions. One example includes a trip to Dallas, where they provided 5 young girls with an unforgettable adventure outside of their city limits.
So myself, my wife, and 5 little girls, we all hopped on a plane and flew down to Dallas. Spent a couple days down in Dallas, went to a couple events while we were there, flew back. 2 of the older girls, they told us, prior to us going, they had never been outside of the city of Tulsa. I know for a fact, them being 12 and 13 years old, that experience is something that they're going to remember probably for the rest of their lives.
Reflecting on the evolution of foster care technology, Danielle and Quinton highlight the convenience of digital applications such as ECC, Electronic Child Care Connect, an app which streamlines processes, ensuring a smoother experience for both caregivers and children, and connects foster families with essential resources.
When we do our drop-offs, you have to swipe. That information goes to DHS. The way it's set up now, you have an app and you instantly say, okay, well, they're in or they're out. And let's say you miss a swipe. So now you have to go and do back swipes on those particular days at that particular time through this certain allotted time, and then you sign out that way. You don't have to do that anymore. It's a simple push of the button. That cuts down on a lot of time. That helps you get them inside the child care center and also get them out of the child care center.
The ECC Connect is everything. Once you become a foster parent, one of the perks is you do get child care subsidy through the state. We don't get food stamps, but we do get child care subsidy for children who are needing child care. So yes, it used to be very tedious. And now that things have evolved and we have the digital app, which I believe most to all people who have the child care subsidy has that option now.
Danielle then shares her perspective on a new app for children who have aged out of foster care, transitioning to adulthood, aiming to prevent homelessness.
Yeah, it's called the Launch Ahead app. So Monty Myers, who actually has lived experience as a youth who aged out of foster care, created this app. And the whole goal is to digitize the transition care process for young people who ages out of foster care so they won't go into homelessness.
Myers provides an overview of the app, why they created it, and how it works.
So Launch Ahead is a goal management and progress tracking application for young people that are transitioning out of the foster care system. So at the age of 14, every young person is federally mandated to have a transition care plan. And 3 months before they age out of care or transition out of care, they're supposed to have a transition care plan. And that doesn't always happen. And so a lot of times young people age out or transition out into homelessness, into incarceration, into being sex trafficked, into a lot of different things because they were not prepared. My platform is going to help them to do that.
As advocates for fostering, Danielle and Quinton emphasize the need for more individuals, especially from diverse backgrounds, to consider becoming foster parents.
Yes, so we have a lot of children here in Oklahoma in the foster care system. And as much as I'm an advocate for fostering and my husband is, there are not a lot of people fostering, period. And then when it comes to people who are Black and brown, it's very, very slim to none. So as much as my husband and I like to advocate and get people to want to be foster parents, people are really reluctant. And one of their biggest reasons is because they say, I don't know how I can have a kid and give them back. I encourage people still to do it because when you go into foster care, you have to go in with a mindset of, I'm here to help this child or these children for a season because the goal is reunification.
Do it. Just simply do it. Put in the time. I think it's like 27 hours you have to complete. Once you do your background check, these kids will change your life. There's some big personalities out here. There's some that you have to pull their personality out, but once you get them, oh my goodness, it's really hard to not enjoy them.
With many children navigating adolescence in the foster care system, mentorship and support in promoting self-confidence and resilience during formative years is important. Triumph through the foster care system requires love from the local community and caring leaders. To learn more about Imani's app, visit www.launchahead.co. You can follow their Instagram page at launchahead and email Imani, AMNONI, at launchahead.co. To learn more about Danielle's work with women in the workplace and being a foster parent, visit www.joinmotherboard.com/our-founder. This is segment 1 of 3. Part 2 will feature the founder of the Care Portal app on how technology had changed the way we view foster care. For Focus, Black Oklahoma, I'm Zaakirah Muhammad in Tulsa.
Tulsa bid Kamren Larsen, the first Black BMX Olympian, farewell in style. USA BMX hosted a send-off party at their headquarters on July 16th, offering fans a final chance to meet and cheer on 4 of the 5 Olympians before they departed for France to compete for gold. Larsen sat down with FBO to share his excitement about this historic first.
So I had an untraditional way of qualifying, and I was actually on my couch when I realized and found out that I made the team. And a little bit of backstory on that is just we had to wait for the European Championships to the Europeans to compete at their championships, and we were waiting on specifically Great Britain. And if they qualified a certain amount of athletes, then we wouldn't have gotten 2 because I'm the second rider on the team. And they, fortunately for me, didn't qualify. And found out on my couch and went crazy. I watched the race, and so I kind of assumed that was going to mean I made the team. And then later, probably 2 days later, I got a phone call. The head director, Jamie Staff at USA Cycling. I think obviously I was super excited, but I was more so feeling just very honored. Being a part of the U.S. Olympic team specifically is a huge honor and privilege, and I kind of understand what all of that means. So when I finally got the phone call, it was a surreal feeling, but more than anything, I was just super excited. I am most excited for competing. I think, especially for BMX, it's not a huge niche sport, right? So there's very, very limited opportunities to be under those big lights in front of all those people and have the impact that I've had, even felt the last month, you know? And I think it's just a great opportunity to be competing with the best in the world. If you win on August 2nd, or if I win on August 2nd, like I can say undisputably I'm the fastest BMX racer in the world for that time. And there's very, very limited opportunities for that. So I think above everything, I'm looking forward to competing. And then obviously it's just a huge honor again to represent my country. And I think that country and team atmosphere kind of raises everybody's level. It's an exciting time. Honestly, talking about it is super surreal, but I can imagine just, getting chills. And, again, this has been a dream of mine. So to really be living that out is going to be an amazing feeling. I would say the starting hill is a really big key. So about in 2006, 2007, BMX introduced the 8-meter start hill, which is about roughly 30 feet. And it's pure adrenaline, pure high speed. We're going from 0 to probably 40 miles an hour in 3 seconds. And then with the result of that, the jumps at the bottom of that hill are 30 to 40 feet. Whereas a track in California, or again, back in the day, we could be coming off a very, very small hill, maybe 3 meters max. And that stuff is more on the ground, I wouldn't say backyard style, but definitely a little bit less in the air and flashy. It's a feeling that I've been addicted to ever since I did it. It just, again, adrenaline rush is what it feels like. And, I started riding bikes because of the freedom that it gave me. And that's kind of how I would sum it up. Just adrenaline and freedom. And, you feel like you're going way faster than you actually are. So that's always fun.
Jazz legend Freda Payne will be at Tulsa's The Church Studio July 27th for a book signing of her new biography, Band of Gold. Payne spoke with FBO's Quraysh Ali Lansana about her legacy and the upcoming event.
What was life like for you as a young Black woman child in Detroit at that time? I just discovered that I loved the arts more than I did academia. You know, I wasn't like all A student. Maybe I think the best I did was like get some B's and C's, and that was it. But I seemed everything. I seemed to lean towards, like when we had modern dancing in high school as one of the subjects, and associated with gymnastics and all that kind of stuff. I excelled a lot. I also, in the music classes, we had music classes, and my sister and my mother started us taking piano lessons when I was like about 7 years old, and took piano lessons for about 5 or 6 years. And then after that, when I started to enter talent contests, when I didn't know I didn't think I had any talent, but somebody talked me into, trying auditioning for a talent show on TV. And I auditioned for it, and I got on the show, and I won. And then they called me back 6 months later, and I won the second time. And that's when I said, I must have something going here. I said, maybe this is the direction I should follow, becoming, be a professional singer, push myself in that area. And I did. And then by the time I turned 16, 17, I got to audition for Duke Ellington. I went on the road with Pearl Bailey on her review. And then when I was 18, I went to New York. And that's when I met Quincy Jones, and he booked me to sing with his big band at the Apollo and also the Regal Theater in Chicago.
And Mr. Berry Gordy came into your life very early. What was he like, and what was working with him like? Although I know that the contracts didn't work out initially, but what was that experience like? You were there before Motown was Motown, right?
Absolutely, before there was a Motown. He was a taskmaster. I remember him, he wrote some songs for me, and we would rehearse. He had me rehearse them and rehearse them and rehearse them till it was almost like I couldn't go to sleep without thinking about the song that would be haunting me, that kind of thing. He was a taskmaster. I wasn't surprised when his business and his career took off. I wasn't surprised because I knew that he was a real taskmaster. People that are really into their work, and, it's almost like, this is it. This is what I'm doing, and I don't want to do anything else, almost 24/7. I wasn't surprised because he was a diligent taskmaster, and that's what it takes sometimes to succeed.
Do you have any regrets that being able to work with him, recording at Motown, that didn't work out?
I in a way, I do, because I look at it this way. I came before Diana Ross. I could have been where Diana Ross is today, or where she was, let's say I could have had that kind of success.
And you would attribute that success for Diana Ross squarely on the shoulders of Berry Gordy and Motown?
Absolutely. I got, like they say, you got to when you look at your building blocks where you came from, you got to go back to the beginning and attribute that to how you started, who gave you your breaks.
Your early albums were more jazz cabaret vocals, much more in the jazz vocalist sort of stylings of Ella Fitzgerald and so on. And then with the hit, the gold, that band of gold struck, do you feel that it changed I know it changed your career, you write about that, but did it change your artistry, do you think, or your approach to your art?
No, not really, because what you have is what you have. I mean, I describe it like having a treasure chest, and you've got this treasure chest locked up. But once you want to use it and make use of it, you have the lock to unlock it and to release it and use that wealth of talent. That's how I describe it. So I always had that. I sing more jazz now, and I do more, like when I do my Ella Fitzgerald plays, or if I do songs that Ella was known for with a lot of scatting, like How High the Moon or Mr. Paganini, songs like that. I have that ability to do that. Some singers can do it, but they have to do it. They have to do scatting by rote. I mean, by rote, by just, but yeah, okay. Learning it like note for note and not creating your own scat. When I scat, it's almost like speaking in tongue. That's my best way to describe it. It feels great. I feel like it's a great feeling of freedom. It's a feeling of freedom that, I hear these notes. I hear this, but you got to stay within the realm of the chording. You can't just go off and just do anything silly. But it's like being a musician, like a saxophone or a trumpet player. It's like, just playing, only you're vocalizing with it. You're not blowing in a horn, you're vocalizing.
With Band of Gold's success, and then you recorded a few more R&B soul records, and then in 2007 you dropped On the Inside, in 2009 High Standards, and then in 2014 another jazz record. Is your approach to the music different if you're singing an R&B song or versus a jazz standard?
Well, when I'm singing an R&B song, I readjust the tone, and I just sing it based on how I want to get it, how I want to interpret it. I don't want, I'll give you an example. A lady who I admired so much and who was such a wonderful jazz singer, Nancy Wilson. No matter what song she sang, you always knew it was Nancy. She never, like, if she did a jazz tune, that's Nancy Wilson. If she did any other kind of song, you knew that was, she did a R&B kind of type song.
You've worked with so many of the greats of the 20th century in terms of music, and you worked with Holland Dozier Holland, which is an amazing thing. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like?
Well, it was interesting because what I felt like I had to throw away my thoughts about how I should sing a song or approach a song, and I had to follow their instruction. But I decided that, like I said, unlike Nancy Wilson, who would definitely still want to put her personality and styling into a R&B or blues tune, I threw those thoughts out the window. I said, I want to have a hit record. I want to be a success. So if they tell me to take a breath here and stop there and don't jazz it up at all, just sing straight, I'm going to do it. And it worked.
Is there anything that you would like for folks coming to your event here in Tulsa to know, or anything they can expect?
Well, who knows? Besides seeing me and talking and, being able to purchase one of my books and autograph and all that. And of course, I'll be with Mark Bigo, who was the co-writer as well, and he'll be there. Who knows? I mean, I might sing a song or two. Who knows?
The book signing will occur on July 27th from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. with Miss Freda Payne. Band of Gold biographer Mark Bigo, also known for his most recent Joe Cocker biography, will also be in attendance. Tickets for the July 27th event are $39 and may be purchased at the Church Studio website, www.thechurchstudio.com/Freda-Payne-book-signing-experience.
Focus Black Oklahoma is produced in partnership with KOSU Radio and Tri-City Collective. Additional support is provided by the Commemoration Fund. Our theme music is by Moffett Music. Focus Black Oklahoma's executive producers are Quraysh Ali Lansana and Bracken Clark. Our associate producers are Smriti Iyengar and Jesse Ulrich. Our production intern is Gabby Rucker. You can visit us online at kosu.org or focusblackoklahoma.com and on YouTube at Tri-City Collective. You can follow us on Instagram at FocusBlackOK and on Facebook at facebook.com/FocusBlackOK. You can hear Focus Black Oklahoma on demand for free at kosu.org, the NPR app, npr.org, or wherever you get your podcasts. And a shout out to the Bart Center for Music for granting us temporary residence to record this month's episode.
Did you know KOSU accepts vehicles as a form of support? You get a tax deduction, and we'll take care of the rest. Visit kosu.org or call 855-277-8255